Hey everybody, David here, and welcome to the ASOG podcast. You're short-staffed and desperate to get someone in the door, so you put out an ad, you conduct some interviews, and you're lucky to get someone hired. Weeks later, you're ready to fire them. What happened? What is causing this, and what can we do to prevent it? In this episode recorded at AAPEX 2021, Lucas and I sit down with Tom Schearer of Schearer Sales and Service and Bill Nalu of Interstate Auto Care to discuss this very thing and a few other topics. Before we get into it, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you have us set to automatically download the latest episode so you never miss an upload. And now, here we go.
Lots of cool stuff going on. I mean, it's a really cool show. And, I'm used to going to these other shows, man. This sucker's huge.
Do we want to delve into the 60% that's missing from the show and why we think it might be?
Yeah, absolutely.
They
What do you think?
wanted to get normal shop owners here for the first time. Can you turn mine just a hair up? And I don't know how many they actually pulled, because we were walking around looking for shop owners, and we only found Tom Schearer and nobody else.
Wow. Great.
You're the
He
only
kind
one
of stands out, though. I mean, he's like Rick White in a younger, skinnier form. I mean, he just stands out.
That's a hell of a compliment.
Yeah, it is.
Although
Rick White's
I don't
a
know
great
if that's
guy.
how he's meaning this.
Yeah, I think he's going a little bit sideways there.
This thing has already started off sideways with
Have we ever
menstruating men.
Have we ever done one of these that's not sideways?
Yes, yeah.
No,
just doesn't
we've kept them straight. We had the one with the head HR person at Advance, so we kept that one super professional.
Yeah.
Who else?
That's the only one I can remember.
No, Chris Chesney.
that
We
was
kept
what?
that one pretty professional. We
Those
didn't,
were what,
we
2
didn't go
minutes worth?
stupid.
Yeah.
No,
minutes?
that was full hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
So you say 60% of them are missing. What do you mean? Explain it.
We've got 60%. Those are pretty good numbers from what I've gathered, just visually and from the data that I've been able to confirm. And I think some of it has to do with, I think the tone is, the overriding tone for AAPEX should be that if you're a shop owner that has any struggles whatsoever, which only is about, 100% of shop owners around the country, you might want to come here and meet, a few hundred shop owners and understand that there's not a problem that exists in this physical universe and in this industry that we belong to that doesn't have some solution connected to it.
It's not
because you've got
unique
some
to us.
really, really smart people.
Yeah.
Some really smart people that can add to your repertoire as a shop owner. And so to me, I don't even come here for the training. I just come here for the camaraderie and frankly, to thank some of the suppliers that we deal with, to be able to see. I mean, I came in here through Out of Value Bumper to Bumper back in 2016 was the first one. Out of Value Bumper to Bumper does this every 3 years.
Right.
And so next year is our big year. And I'm closing the shop down, and I'm bringing everybody with me, because the last time we did that, I brought my A-Tech, my B-Tech, and my son. And we had just, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful experience.
It is so much fun. I mean, to bring your whole team to an event like this is huge, right? I mean, we do that. We go to ASTE. Sometimes we'll go to Vision. We don't always shut the shop down. I'm taking everybody to STX this year, so taking the whole shop. So, I mean, those things build culture for the shop, and they build an environment where people can truly engage, right? Like, it's away from the shop. You don't have that stress and that pressure, so you can truly learn, and it's almost like it's easier.
You can connect.
It's easier to say
people,
the things that you may not say in the shop, right? Because you're sitting around the dinner table, you've had a few drinks. It builds culture, That's huge for me. So I agree with you.
I mean,
So you're saying you're calling everybody who isn't here out? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think as shop owners, I think it's incumbent upon us. I think we have a responsibility to show up to these events, and this is without guilt, by the way. I'm really it's my personal view, and I'm appealing to us as an industry to show up to these things because they spend a hell of a lot of money. The suppliers
crazy.
spend a lot of money to put this stuff together.
Yeah.
So the least thing that we can do, show up to these things and shake a bunch of hands and say, I really appreciate you making this, because this is essentially our Super Bowl week. I mean, I know the word Super Bowl's been patented, so get ready. You guys are going to get sued for this, right?
Hey, don't worry.
You're going to have the NFL calling on you.
We'll send you the bill.
But this is our industry Super Bowl week. I don't know if it gets any bigger than that. If there is, somebody tell me. But
I don't think so.
This is as big as it gets, and it seems like it's getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
You guys, I'm not the only one that's seeing all kinds of really big capital coming in this industry. You see Wall Street really. I mean, I met several people that were investors, and they wanted to talk to some of the vendors that I do business with, and so they wanted sort of a personal conversation with somebody who's a client of theirs. Did about 3 or 4 of those yesterday.
Right.
There's a lot of money looking for a place.
Yeah.
And I've said this over and over again. I'll say this another 1,000 times. We just happen to be in an industry where we're working on the most complicated consumer product that man has ever created.
Right.
And we just happen to manage the most complicated machine that God has ever created. You put those two together, I don't see us losing work anytime soon. This is a complicated business model, and the only thing missing now is a more sophisticated shop owner that has connections, that is able to reach out to brethren and sisterin,
Right.
to be able to make this thing really the dream that Bob Greenwood was somebody that I really enjoyed listening to over the years.
Oh, I know, man.
Making this,
Super
going
guy.
from God bless his, and I want to be part of the industry that's going to make that realization that they
Be part of the change.
the 70 to 80% that understands what we're worth.
Absolutely. And that's something that we talk about a lot, is understanding what we're worth. Right. And that's a big deal for me because, we are working on very complex systems, right? More so than we ever have before, but we're not seen as that same level of professional as many other professions are. Why is that? I mean, what do you see?
Hold on. Look at that guy behind you. He looks like Dutch. It's Dutch's doppelganger.
Yeah, but Dutch doesn't have
And actually, Dutch said hi to Bill and Tom. We're not good enough to
Isn't
get
it?
a hello.
Hey, Dutch. How you doing today? But, David, you want to go over there and tell them to turn that down a little bit? It's
That'll
kind
be
of
fun.
interfering here.
No, listen, here's the thing is,
We
it
need an
actually
on-air
adds to
button.
it.
Yeah, it's the. I'm not kidding. Look at the guy. Look at his profile.
Oh, this guy right here in the blue
Yes,
suit.
the
Oh,
blue
yeah,
suit.
I'm thinking about this guy. No, it absolutely is.
Look
oh my
at that.
God!
Thank you.
I'm taking a
Thank
picture
you.
of this. I'm
The
taking
camera
a
on this
picture of
guy.
this. I'm taking a picture
my
of this.
God.
He's got the glasses, the hair,
He's taking a
everything.
picture. I'm taking
Oh,
a
does he?
looks
Does he
just
have
like
Does he have a comb with less tongs in it?
No, don't pick on Dutch.
David,
Some of us
I'm
can't
not.
grow
He's
hair.
the one who came up with that, not me.
Absolutely taking a picture of this.
You know what would be pretty cool
I'm telling
if
you,
you
take
guys
a
could
picture
go
of it.
wireless.
Turn around, look.
I
As soon as he
saw
turns
it.
around.
You
As
just,
soon as he turns around.
David, you can go over there and grab a hold of him.
Hey, you want to go ask him if he can be on the podcast with us for a few minutes? We've got a friend looks just like you.
The side profile doesn't as much, but as soon as you kind of turns around, his
This guy's gonna come over and beat the hell
He's
out
like,
of me.
yeah.
What are you doing taking pictures of me? Full Circuit Diagnostics says, "Ooh, squirrel." Yes, you're exactly right.
Thank you.
It really
Sam.
does. Are you gonna? I can't post it on here. You're
no,
gonna.
no,
Hey.
I'll send it. They'll send it to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good deal.
Wow.
Yes. I'm well, Tom,
Yes.
and
Where
grateful
were we?
you and Bill are on the podcast. I always appreciate your point of view, even if we occasionally disagree.
Don't read the comments.
I know I had to just because I'm reading it and it's coming out. Okay, you're gonna have to just get over it. So, in all seriousness,
Let's talk about that Facebook post because
I
we could
didn't-
use their perspectives.
I didn't even read it. You read
Useless. You're absolutely useless.
it. Hey, I'm friends with you. I've been around you long enough now. It's starting to wear off.
So this shop owner posted about his struggles keeping staff on. As soon as he hires them, it's almost he almost played it off like a joke. It's like everybody's taking bets how long this person's going to last.
Yeah.
And we had a mutual acquaintance that used to do that as well. I am going to hire so and so. Let's start taking bets how long they last. And he got some good feedback, but it was almost the guy had made a mistake and ruined an engine, and his complaint was this person came in with a couple years experience and had graduated from tech school. This person should be self-sufficient, fairly self-sufficient. And it was Mario Rojas who I think gave the absolute spot-on answer. I just want to
why should he be self-sufficient? A couple of years, training school, and he's self-sufficient?
2 years at a dealer and trade school. So he graduated, and who was it? Was it Eric who told us? Maybe it was Sean Tipping, who told us that the only thing we're teaching them, the only expectation you should have of them when they get out of tech school is they're not going to kill themselves.
Yeah, that was Eric. But I mean,
anybody else.
Sean said the same thing too. I mean, 3 to 5 years minimum in a shop just to get base proficiency, right?
I think it depends on the person. It depends on the person.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
Mario essentially lined up and said, it doesn't matter how much experience they have. If you're not bringing them on board and showing them exactly how you expect them to do A, B, and C, don't get upset because they screwed something up. You didn't outline the procedures. You didn't go through, and the assumption is, I think this is 99% of shop owners. They hire somebody, the person says, I've got 5 years experience, 10 years experience, which are entirely arbitrary numbers, by the way. It's idiotic, I think. We can talk about that later. But they're coming in with however much experience they have. And everything past that is assumption. I assume they should be able to do X. I assume they should be able to do Y. I was able to do X and Y after 2 years. Why can't this person do X and Y after 2 years? And he essentially laid out as that you didn't show him how to do that. You didn't tell him what you expect him to do on this particular repair. What do you do with your bolts? Do you use mag trays? Use bags? What do you do? How do you do you cover the intake ports to make sure nothing falls in there? Do you use tape? Do you use rags? How do you do it at this shop? It didn't get outlined. And so the guy starts making mistakes, and he's talking about firing the guy. Well, he's setting him up for failure, no? What do you think?
I think you're definitely setting him up for failure.
What do you do at your shop?
So,
how often do you even have to hire someone?
Well, that's going through my mind when we're talking about this. I tend to shy away from the younger crowd because of that ramp up time and everything. It's something that I think has been missing from our shop for a long time. We've brought in technicians who are experienced. They have had their share of knowledge, so we can bring them in and kind of pull them away from what they're used to and get them used to what we do in our shop. And maybe there's just a few things we change and tweak on and get into place. But we certainly, even with bringing in a new and experienced tech, I'm not bringing them in and cutting them loose and saying they should be self-sufficient. They need to know and understand what we're doing and how we do things. It's a totally different process. Our last tech that we brought in, our most recent one, he was a previous employee, so he came in. It was real easy to ramp him up. But the one before him, he spent 30 years at the dealership, and that was not a total retrain, but total different thought process.
Oh yeah,
from
different philosophy
he did
entirely.
and what we're doing, and he came to us because of that, because of what we do and how we do it, and he wanted to get away from that dealership perspective. But for the younger tech, there has to be some type of apprenticeship program like Lucas has done, and what they've done with in North Carolina was it AST, right?
IGONC,
IGONC,
which is
okay.
ASTA now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think some of it was the fact that he's young, he's therefore likely cheap? I don't think this guy's underpaying his tech. I don't think so. I hope not.
That could definitely be a point of view for some people to just try to get the cheapest labor in the door. And, obviously, in my opinion, it's wrong. But
it could be. But I think more of it is like when you see somebody who continually goes through this, right? Like not just one time, not just 2 times, 3 and 4 times. At some point, you got to start looking at it and saying, hey, maybe I've got something
They never
to do
do.
with this.
It's always this generation doesn't want to work, or society today, or these kids. It's always something like that. It's always external.
I think, and I agree with you. I think that is, and I'm hoping they hear that, and anybody listening hears and says, "Man, I've been through 15 interviews. I've been through 5 or 6 employees, and the problems always come up. Maybe I've got a hand in this. Maybe I need to do something different.
Maybe,
and
maybe."
I think in a lot of ways, it can even come down to having a lazy culture. And what I mean by that is look, if you hire an apprentice, you're going to have failures. You're going to have mistakes. Things are going to get messed up, right? That we have to pay to fix, right? Things that cost money. This is an expense. Having an apprentice is an expense. Training someone is an expense.
But I don't think he hired this guy with the assumption that he was going to be an apprentice. I think he looked at it and said, 2 years experience at a dealership, which is like, who knows what that means? Because they will stick somebody in a lube rack
for 2 years.
For 2+ years, absolutely. So who knows what 2 years at a dealership looks like? And then tech school, you can throw that out. The guy can rack a car. Congratulations. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I've got a buddy who hired some young folks like that, and he was intense with them, right? He was extremely intense. And they don't do
What does intense mean?
I mean intense, like over their shoulder. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? You shouldn't do this. You should do that. Why'd you do this? You should have done this.
Okay.
Right? Nonstop. And it made them make mistakes.
Sure.
You have to create an environment where it's okay to make mistakes. You have to create an environment where it's okay to ask questions, right? I'm too busy for this. I don't have time for this, right? We worry about the tech shortage, but we're not doing the hard work that it takes to fix it. We want everybody else to do the hard work. Nobody's coming to the table and saying, I'll take care of this, right? Let's just do it. Right? They all want the easy way, which is hire somebody that's got experience, right? Those people are not out there anymore, right?
You most likely have to steal them from somebody else. But
don't we mean when we say, I want somebody who's, sort of knows what they're doing? How do we know that that's, even if it's the right way, how do we know that that's the way? What if we're doing things the wrong way? What if you got a tech that is miles or years ahead of us in process, right? In procedure, in their expectation on what we should be charging? What if we're behind and we're holding them back because we don't know what the hell we're doing, right? And so I guess it goes back. My personal experience is that I think it's worth bragging over the fact that I had alcoholics, drug addicts for a big chunk of my 30 years. And 13, 14 years ago, a young man comes in the door that had been bouncing around, and I decided to build my shop around him because what he reminded me of, what I was celebrating in him is what I celebrate in me. I'm a father. I'm a husband.
Right.
That's the most important thing in my life.
Yes.
And we're providers and protectors.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I hire on the basis of the kind of person that I want working with me because they will understand what it's like to put in a 15-hour workday on some days if we have to do that, right? What it's like to give somebody grace. What it's like to not fire somebody for dropping a car off a hoist and not saying a word about it because they already know what it's like. Because of the 10 or 15 times that I should have fired that tech, they should have fired me 20 of those times.
Yeah.
I have deserved to get fired. I can't even tell you how many times.
Absolutely.
I've shortchanged my guys on so many occasions because I didn't realize how valuable we are. And so they raise us, we raise them.
Absolutely.
And to the extent that we show up in places like this and talk to other shop owners and broadcast this message out to the rest of the industry, for the love of God, forgive yourself for not being perfect. And if you're going to do that for yourself, the least you could do is do that for the people that are in your charge.
Everybody forgives themselves most of the time. Well, not everybody. I was in 98%.
So to me, experience is overrated. Well, it depends on the experience that you're coming with. If you came in expecting things like years ago, I hired a guy that had his own business out in Western Michigan. And this guy comes in and talks about how he knows everything, and he's a legitimately great tech. This guy almost destroyed my business in the span of a month or two. Because he had his own idea of how things were done. Like one of the things is we don't get a 4-day weekend for might have been 4th of July weekend.
Right.
I said, well, no. I said this is falling on a Wednesday or whatever it was, and we're coming back. We're going to work Thursday and Friday, and back then we were open 6 days a week, whatever. He goes, well, and so you'd hear this over and over again. Well, back at my shop, I did it this way. And then one day I finally just snapped at him. I'm like, you're talking about the shop that you no longer own, right? The one that went out of business?
Right.
That's the one, right? That's the one. And that he didn't want to hear that.
Right.
And that was a lesson for me, probably not to hire a former owner.
Yeah. We've heard that before.
Yeah, we've heard that lots of times.
Yeah, we've heard that. And you know this, but our good friends Candace and Jesse, they bought a shop, and the owner continued to work in the shop.
Oh man!
For a number of, I guess it was 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, maybe it was going on 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, and
good luck making changes there.
Well, and so now he's gone. And it's turned into an ordeal, and the things that they were supposed to own, now he has this idea that he owns it, and this whole different concept of what the agreement was and everything else.
Oh, wow!
And so it really changes. It changes the dynamic of the shop, and never gave them the opportunity to really grow and learn, and they're doing great now. But I mean, it's just something to think about, especially when you've got somebody that's owned a shop, has their own idea of how it should work. Man, it's tough to change that mindset. It really is.
You hire somebody, and for me, like, I have no problem getting applications. I have no problem with the quantity of interviews. The biggest thing that scares me is their quality threshold. Because everybody has something internalized. What do I accept, and what don't I accept? Every technician's different. Some of them are like sticklers about some things that maybe I'm like, look, I don't care. And so sometimes that's a clashing point but most of the time you want the bar way higher than where they are, and you hire them in and you're like, whoa. No impact on that. Torque wrench every single time. Whoa, I'm like, I don't care.
Right. Well, I mean, you watched me go through that, right? You watched me with that one tech go through that over and over and over again, because he wanted to do it his way. He was older than I was, and he knew everything, and he wasn't going to listen to the young kid on the block. He wasn't interested in that.
That's another problem too. At least it was like almost 10 years ago when I opened the shop up. It's less than, everybody looks at me and they're like, oh, you must be 50 plus.
64.
That's
64.
It.
I look fantastic for 64. Thank you very much.
All right.
That's not so much our problem, but you've got the baby face, so I can imagine poor Eric, who's all pushing 60, listens to you.
He's a good guy. He is a good guy. He is a good guy. He's good-hearted. He's good people. So a comment mentions that there are very few classes that teach us how to interview and what to look for and what to ask.
There's interviewing classes out there. They don't look for it.
Scarce compared to technical classes at an event like this is what the comment was. And so that's probably true, right? There's a lot of...
That's not the issue. There are fantastic, and I mean fantastic, hiring and interview classes available.
They just don't ever invite David to teach at these events.
I forget to submit the stupid classes. That's what Sherry told me. I'm like, hey, when is the class deadline? She's like, 2 months ago. I'm like, oh, well, that sucks.
Last minute Dave.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way as you are. I'll sign up for some of them when I can remember. But when I do sign up, I'll invariably, and this will come as a big shock to you guys, I'm in a hallway talking with a couple of shop owners. We talk in shop, and we're talking about life, right?
Yeah.
And class is gone.
Look, to me, that's the biggest deal, right? That's what I love about these events is understanding. I guess it was a couple weeks ago when we were at AASP Tools. We went up and we were just sitting in Tom's office, and it was me and Tom and one of our friends, and we were talking about the leadership thing, and we're having this conversation, and we both see him get this look on his face, and he said, "I'll be right back." He walks out and he comes back in and he says, I had to ask who was in charge in my shop when I wasn't there because I don't know. You know what I mean?
And you've got family working inside your shop, though. Yeah. It's almost like the name's on the building. You know what I'm saying? Like, my name's not on my building for several reasons. So.
That's done with auto care.
I'm done with it.
That's one of the paradigm shifts that we've seen in the last probably 3 to 5 years. And that is that the social media, for all of their the garbage and the nonsense that you see out there, the content that is put out for us specifically to industry, and I'm sure as you gentlemen have done the same, I warn vendors all the time, ones that are not listening to people like me or people like you. I say to them all the time, there are back channels that you're not privy to. You don't understand these conversations that they're taking place. You need to get a handle on this.
Yes.
You're not doing what you've said.
You got hooked up with Dorman, didn't you? Or
yeah.
You had Dorman a bunch of times out at your shop.
And I just appreciate, and this is, remember there was a whole backstory about, guys that were just trashing, it's like, that's great. So a company that spends oodles amount of money to support our industry doesn't get to hear you say, this is what I want you to do for me. I want you to improve this. I want you to improve.
Right.
Don't go visit them, right? Don't listen to their commitment to our industry. Just continue to trash people and just say you're not doing. And incidentally, that's what they do with the employees. You're not good enough. You're fired. You're fired.
That's a good segue. I will say though, like I like the dynamic we have now. We can still talk crap, but Lester gets on there and he will defend the company.
Yeah,
and that then turns into a good back and forth. And he's willing to listen. I will say,
and
which is a huge deal.
Now Lester will put money where his mouth is.
Yes.
Lester will come up and he'll say, "Look, man, try this. Just trust me.
I'll give you a warranty. I'll give you this or that." Yeah, which I do appreciate. They're at least trying. They're at least trying. But back to what we were saying, I don't think it's a hiring issue at all, because this shop owner didn't have any trouble finding somebody. They got somebody in the door. It was entirely an onboarding and shop culture problem.
100%.
It was entirely, I'm not managing my business. I'm not managing this person. I don't have anything in place. And he may have internalized set standards, like he doesn't do things A, B, and C, but and he then assumed it I can tell you right now, he is likely assuming it of everybody that comes in that has quote unquote experience. He's assuming that they have those standards. He's not communicating it. And the minute they don't meet those standards, I got to let them go. It's time to let them go.
And I've said this before, especially when it came to service advisors, right? Like I have got a way that I like to talk to my clients. I've got a way that I like to handle client situations. I was the same way when I was a tech, right? But I had more experience in the customer service aspect than I did in the tech role in a lot of ways, right? So I was actually more comfortable turning over the tech role than I was the customer service side of the business. And when we started doing that, it just literally took Rick saying to me, "You are being an asshole." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You are effing forgiving yourself for the things that they're doing, but you're not willing to forgive them for it. That's not right. Right? You're over here and you don't see what you're doing as a problem because I'm the boss and I'm making a decision on the fly. But they're over here following your lead, doing what you show them to do, and you won't forgive them for that. That's not right."
Yeah, that's a great point.
Grace is an amazing job saver when a tech is looking at that ad and counting all the ways.
You ever seen that in attack?
What's
in an ad?
No.
I just said attack.
No,
What did I say?
you know what? Why is? Well, that's a great point. Why isn't there an ad that says
We extend grace.
If you're a tech that's looking for a job and you've worked for rigid organizations, we have standards, we have procedures that we expect to be followed. However, rest assured, you will not be fired for things that normal human beings do.
Yeah.
And to the extent that you want to work here, we hope that you'll extend the same grace for the
That's
because
a good
because
ad.
That
is a beautiful.
Everybody here is growing, and we are looking for people that are as imperfect as we are.
Right, because we're a family. Be part of a family.
And we go back to David. You were talking about this other shop where they were managing the person, and I think if we take a step back and look, we don't want to manage a person. We want to manage the process and what they're doing. And the person comes along for the ride. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So, sure. I guess the issue is you have to make sure that the person is the right person to begin with. So the hiring process becomes even more critical. Because the process, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I guess it depends. It depends.
Yeah, I mean, the person needs to be able to learn and grow with what you're looking to do.
There you go.
And there's a process to get them down that line. You have to hire for their personality, what they're willing to do, and then guide them down that process that you have, rather than just on top of you got to do this, you got to do that.
What's amazing to me is that in this post, this person says the technician had made a bunch of mistakes, and he probably knew he was in the hot seat. And he turns and he goes, "Man, looks like I've got a lot to learn." What a fantastic attitude!
Right.
How quickly does that person's attitude change when they make a mistake? Yeah. They're mad at themselves. You're mad at them too.
and you've got a boss that comes along and says, "Would you mind sharing the fact that you've learned something from this situation? And please explain to them why we don't leave something on the ground like that somebody can roll their ankles over here. Because now you're out for the next 3 or 4 days. Would you please share that? Because they don't listen to me, but they will listen to the."
If you've got more than this is a small shop, but if you've got more than one person, well, absolutely.
Well, that class that I had to teach yesterday, one of the big themes in that class was focus on outcomes. Don't focus on task, right? And so much of what we do as owners is we really do focus on a task at hand, right? And I get that we need processes and policies and procedures. That's really important. But are we training our staff to focus on the desired outcome, a safe and reliable vehicle for our client, right? And so shops, for instance,
you give them a little bit more leeway on, and that's where I kind of paused with what you were saying. It's almost like I don't want to dictate every aspect of the repair because I'm not that. That's just this is a personality thing. We just had Seth on here early this morning, and he said, "Did we ask him on there? I don't remember." And anyway. He showed up here. This thing said 9 o'clock behind Lucas. We were supposed to be here at 9 o'clock. Now, I'm never on time to anything ever. I'm just not.
I'm usually on time until
he's hanging with me. Yeah, and all of a sudden he's got to wait on me. And so I'm never on time for anything.
I got a wife like that too.
The notes on that class said, like on the first screen, it says, "My wife's in the back of the room," and Eric Bach and David Roman and Tom Schearer sit in the back of the room. I'm like, well, which one is it today?
I don't understand why this guy looks so much like Dutch. I don't understand why I'm the wife.
Dutch is, you know what? It's Dutch's twin brother, and he sent him over here just to screw with us. That's what it is.
That's
Dutch,
exactly.
We see you working.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
He looks older. He looks older.
Well played.
He looks older than Dutch. If you look at him straight on, he looks a little bit older than Dutch.
I didn't know you could get older than Dutch.
What's that?
Oh, wow.
I thought
he acts and talks old, but
Wow.
he's got a youngish face. He does.
Youngest face and a youngish.
You guys are going to pay for this,
and
one way or another.
And he's
a
wired
monthly
all the time.
Subscription to Depends. I mean, how much better?
Have him walk you through his shop.
Dutch, if I could get through here, I would walk out right now. But David's blocking the aisleway. So
no.
Well, hold up. You bring up.
You guys disappear.
You bring up a really good point.
I don't want to dictate every single aspect of the process. I just want to give them guardrails. Like there's certain aspects that I'm not going to like. It's a big deal that you give a crap about the repair process. It's a big deal that you take pride in your work. All of that is important. That's more important than like exactly how you tighten that down. A lot of it is adjustments.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So it's, hey, don't do that ever again like that. We got to follow this procedure like this because it's a big deal. Because you can get away with a lot of stuff.
You don't know the procedure until a mistake's made, right? Until you need to implement a policy or procedure.
Yeah.
There's no way to know.
Why not anecdotal evidence? So the reason, Tom, that we do this, the reason that we change the oil first, and then bring the car back up and then do the tire rotation separately is because in our experience, it's happened a couple of times where they drain the oil, then they change they rotate the tires, start the car up and pull it out and blow the engine up. And so that's why there are two separate jobs there, right? We teach that. But otherwise, you've got a situation where you say to the guy, look, this is what's got to happen. It's got a tire rotation and oil change. You let them go their own way. And if they haven't already done this themselves, they're going to do it to themselves and to you at that point in time. So there's a real danger to letting somebody go without maybe some. I agree with you. You do want an outcome. You do want to say, like, one of the things that we need to do a better job at work. I've got a young man who's our general service guy. We're working him into that. He just got his first ASE in brakes, and we're very proud of him. But I've got to learn to give him just a whole so like, here's 12 things that we want to accomplish over the next couple of days.
Right.
Get those done, however way you want to get them done. I'll leave you alone. I won't ask you another thing about this.
Yeah.
And I think if I leave him alone, he does, because it's often that happens is if I ask him about it, he feels like I'm somehow, minimum. And it's very, very easy for him to go there.
Right.
It's very easy for him to feel like he's somehow failing us. Like we had a couple of slow days, and he's like depressed. I'm like, what's going on? He says, well, it's slow, but obviously it's my fault. And I look at him, I'm thinking he's joking.
Right.
It's for real. We had to sit down and have a half-hour conversation. Like, really, dude?
Right.
Like, hello, this is for me. I've got to get you. My job is to get you cars. Your job is to get the cars done.
Right.
Don't you ever internalize something that is so far removed from you. It's in another galaxy.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe that comes back to setting proper roles or learning, right, as a whole, as a team, right? Sitting in a class, we cross-train in our shop, right? So our advisors do some technical training, and our technical staff does some management and sales training sometimes. And they'll sit through and they'll see these classes where it's talking about, the advisor roles really, this is what you can control. This is within your realm. And the owner, this is what you control. And then the technician, this is your part in the business. If we're not talking about that and setting that standard, that expectation,
to go back to that example, like the GS position. Now, somebody who would be firing a young man like this would say, well, his parents didn't raise him with a work ethic. You'd think he'd pick up a broom or start cleaning the windows or whatever. Does he know that that's something
right.
that is in with, like, pick up a broom and just do this on your own?
Doesn't even know that's the desired outcome.
Does he know that you care about a clean shop and clean windows, and that there are little things that are important that if he took initiative that he wouldn't get in trouble for? Right.
Yeah, exactly, because you're exactly right. He may not even realize. He may be thinking, I'm going to get in trouble for that. Right? I mean, it is a different world, right? Things have changed. I think that they're, I talked to an older gentleman. As a matter of fact, you brought him up the other day. You were talking about, he was the fighter pilot.
Oh yeah.
And man, this guy's got crazy stories. His name's Merle. He's a parts delivery driver. And was in the military for years, and then went and flew for a commercial airline, and then he went and drove dump trucks, and he just like crazy stories, and it's to the point the stories are so outlandish that you think they might not be true until he comes in with a newspaper article, and he's like, here you go, and he brings in the stars and the accolades, and it's just such a neat story, and you look back at those people and you think, gosh, look at the structure that they had. Look at the mentality that they brought to the table. And I was talking to Merle, and Merle said, Lucas, he said, this is nothing new. This has been happening for years. There's always been a shortage of help somewhere. There's always been something going on. I've seen it over and over and over again. And if it's not in the automotive field, it was pilots. And if it wasn't pilots, it was this. He's like, there's always going to be some type of shortage. It's what we do with it that makes the difference. Right? Now, I get that we've got ourselves in a precarious situation tech-wise. Right? Now, I think part of that is that we got some bad shops out there. And the other part of that is we got some bad techs out there. And I hate to say it. I'm going to say it. I mean, some of them probably need to just close. And some of them just need to get out of the industry and go. But David's thinking, it's got me nervous.
I don't know how much of Well, I mean, we're doing it to ourselves, but rather than like, oh, we need to get more bodies in the industry, because that seems to be everybody's focus.
Right.
We need to attract new talent.
We
need to be more effective. Yeah. What's that?
We need to retain as well.
We need to retain.
So many people
it's
running from this industry.
And it's almost entirely because of bad management.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uwe from Auto Vitals years ago, I was on a podcast with Carm, and he said something. He says, we're all anarchists by design. We're all shop owners that, we worked for somebody and then we quit because we wanted to do it our own way.
Yeah.
But we haven't figured out is I want to do it my own way, but we have industry standards. And I'll just give you this quick example. So when we were doing our remodel a couple of years ago, my plumber, he wanted some insulation for the piping above the drop ceiling. And 1-inch piping, Home Depot didn't have it. So he says, go to the plumbing supply place that I go to, and you can just buy it there. So I walk in there, got my uniform on. The guy looks at me, says, yeah, what do you want? I'm like, good morning to you as well. How are you doing? He goes, what do you want? I said, I need to get some of this 1-inch pipe insulation. And he goes, who's your plumber? I'm like, dude, calm down. What do you mean? I'm buying, pool fighting equipment. I mean, this is like in a swimming pool. What are they called? Noodles, right? It's a freaking noodle. He goes, you don't understand. He said, we don't deal with regular folk. We don't deal with non-professionals. And I look at him like, son of a, you know what? I thought, I can't get my parts supplier to not sell a water pump to an unlicensed repair facility, which they have to be, with a 17-year-old kid that's going to put this part on, slap it on. And I can't get the supplier to not sell, just to not think in short-term ways. And yet I can't go buy 45 cents worth of styrofoam from a supplier.
Isn't that crazy?
And there's the contrast there. Obviously, anybody who knows me, knows I'm the last thing from regulations. The last thing we need is the government. But what if this was an industry? What if this was an industry standard that says we're going to get together? Let's say a place like AAPEX, where would we find suppliers that we'd get together, sit them all down and say, if you can just trust us as an industry, right? Stop calling us installers and let's start doing business together, right?
Yep.
You stop selling to unlicensed repair facilities. Stop encouraging technicians to just walk away from their current employer to go seek their own world. It's becoming more and more difficult than it ever was. And so stop encouraging this stuff and allow the shops that are going to stay in business to be able to increase their margin, so thereby they can pay you the extra 5 points on your part. So
exactly.
10, whatever the hell that is.
Exactly, because a professional shop doesn't really care, right? If they run a good business, they don't care about.
And so the knock on that is you're not going to get the parts distributors to not sell a part because it's another box that's being moved. Okay, well, and so here we are.
Well,
and service professionals are it's the same. We work this. We do the same thing. I'm gonna deal with this guy. Yeah, you know what? He says he wants to bring in his own parts. It's kind of slow this week, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this parts on. And lo and behold, we got our next 1-star review.
Exactly.
And then we wonder, what
put
am
our
I ever
neck
gonna
on the
learn?
chopping block.
Yeah.
Put your neck on the chopping block. That's the equivalent of that. And just like the code reading, right? We all know they shouldn't be reading codes, right? AutoZone, you're the only one left that does it, aren't they? AutoZones?
I think O'Reilly.
They all do it.
Yeah.
Really? Advance does it. O'Reilly does it.
I just can't believe we know they shouldn't be doing that. They know they shouldn't be doing that, yet they still do it. And, we've had that conversation, right? Because we had Chris Chesney. We talked about the warranty thing. Like, look, a better warranty for a consumer or a shop that's better trained and credentialed in one way or another. And then Dirk brought up a killer conversation. We talked about insurance. And he said, overseas, man, if you get into a situation, you're working on a car and you're electrocuted, you're working on an EV, and you go in and they say, wait a minute, where's your credentials? You were electrocuted working on an EV. Where's your credentials? Oh, I don't have any. Oh, guess who's in trouble now? Shop owner's out of business, right? I mean, they get shut down. That's it. And so I'm with you. I don't think regulation is what we need. And here we had this conversation this morning. It's just like NASTA, right? Everybody bucked Nastiff, and they're like, I can't believe this is horrible. I can't believe they're doing this. That's the professionalism. That is us regulating ourselves. That is a board of automotive professionals who stand in and say, no, you can't just work on this if you just want to work on it. That's not how this works. And then the industry fights back. I mean, I think it comes down to education because they don't know, right? They don't even know what Nastiff is. But I mean, there's so many aspects to this. There's a lot to fix.
Yeah, we want it, but we don't want it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like ASC. How many times have you saw on ASOG where somebody says, well, ASCs doesn't mean that they can fix cars. So you don't want a board. You don't want a scoreboard on your wall that you can point to when a customer says, well, what makes you guys so special?
Right.
Let me show you. Well, what is this stuff? What does this mean? Well, so if you could hire a certified public accountant versus a regular accountant, would you, if they both cost the same,
right.
Which one would you hire? Well, I'd hire the CPA. Why is that? Because a CPA has to do more, right?
Right.
Same thing here. Credentials.
Exactly.
Credentialization.
And look, when you go and you put those things on the wall, it's not just about having the certification and saying that I know what I'm doing, right? And was it Matt that mentioned
Fanslow, yeah,
that said, hey, it's a baseline proficiency. It doesn't
baseline
mean
proficiency, yeah.
And so, I get that, but in the same respect, it means that we've got commitment to our trade. It means that this is a career for us. This isn't a job for us. It means that I'm not just the guy out here changing parts. It means that I'm trying to pursue this, right? And everybody says, well, I've let mine expire. I'm a shop owner. It's not.
I let mine expire.
Yeah, I mean, I get there's definitely situations where you don't need them, but in the same respect, I think it shows that you're committed to your career.
Yeah. So my mechanical ones, I had 6 of them that I've let expire, not because I haven't had time or wanted to. Part of me feels like I'm not qualified to call myself a tech anymore. I've never been a full-time tech. Who am I to pretend that I'm a technician? Now, in few instances, I've been called in as a witness, an expert witness in court, and you definitely want to have
credentials.
Yeah. So I would, on that basis, I will. But as far as the service writing, the customer service one, why not? Why should the front of the house not have some certification?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't we attach ourselves to some standard, some shape, or some?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm looking at AMI and I'm thinking I want to get Eric a foreman, right? I want to get my guys some type of credential through AMI to show that, hey, we're working towards that. I'm going to, we've got a mandate that says you've got to do 100 hours a year of training. We definitely do over 100 hours a year, but I want to add something to it that says we need to be making sure you have your credentials, right? And so all of them want to work towards that. Right now, we're so busy in the new shop, the whole 9 yards, it's tough to do it. But, I think it's definitely something that if you're committed to your career, you're willing to take that time and study, and you're willing to go take the test. I don't care. I'll pay for it. It's not that big of a deal. I think it just says something about you as a whole.
You know what? You can go ahead. You being a technician, it's good for you because you need to stay up on that. For me as a shop owner, I'll just stay in Florida and then because I don't need it anymore. It's like nothing much changes in my industry as a business owner. God knows, it's not like shop management system change or marketing changes or anything like that. But for you, for you guys out in the shop area, you really need to go to this thing.
That's it.
You need to know how important it is for you to go, even though I don't do it.
Well, but look how many folks just want the boat, right? That's David's big mantra. So many owners just want the boat. They don't care about any of this, right? They don't care about the training. They don't care about whose feelings they hurt. They don't care about did they do the right thing. They just want the boat. They just want the money in the pocket. It doesn't matter to them who they impact. They just want the boat. And I've talked to some. I have a friend that we were talking to. He was talking about, look, I want to build a brand and I want to sell the brand. I want to grow. It's not automotive, but I want to grow the brand in a big way. I want to have multiple locations and I want to sell those multiple locations for lots of money. And he's built a relationship with all of his employees, all of this staff. I'm like, dude, how do you think that would feel to them? And he's like, look, man, I'm looking out for me.
Yeah, he's got his golden parachute, and God bless him for that.
Yeah. I just can't do it. It's just not who I am,
I spend more of my waking hours with my work family. I still put in 50 hours a week because at 56, I still enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah.
I love what I do for a living. And what's interesting about that is the men that I work with whether I think I'm influencing them or not, well, two of my guys have they're married and they've got kids, and they're doing things the way they know that their boss has done. Live within your means. Okay, don't overextend yourself. Don't be somebody that can't recover from the next recession. Don't live out. Live the right way. Right. Put in a solid day's work, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid. And that's really what I'm most proud of. I think that's probably the biggest staying power to this, and that is that I've got guys that understand how open that door is. It's
the managing people part is not bad. I mean, it gets a little frustrating. I had some folks get sick and they've been in and out of the shop and stuff like that. That kind of stuff, I can deal with that. The cars are absolute junk. They are so frustrating.
Are you referring to is that the pain point for you in that?
Yeah, I hate.
So for me, this is how I rationalize my way around this, because it can be a pain point. People that don't have money, that don't have this.
It's not even that. It's well, some of it is that. You fix. We had an F-250 come in, intake manifold leak, very common problem, whatever, right? And there was a little bit of miscommunication between the technician and the service advisor. The service advisor wrote it up like intake manifold gaskets, not the full blown intake. The price more than doubles. So you have to call the customer back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. It's the whole intake manifold, plus we got a thermostat, and this whole thing. I think $1,800, something like that. And the guy, it's a nice truck. It's an older truck, but it's a nice truck. The guy says, yeah, go ahead and do it. He leaves. We had test driven this thing 15 miles. We reran codes. We then checked oil level, coolant level, torqued the wheels. We did the whole thing, the whole dog and pony show. 15 miles. On the interstate, varied driving. Guy calls back probably 15 minutes later. Hey, this thing won't make it up a hill, check engine lights on. What are you? And the stuff like that eats me up.
I know.
That stuff eats me up. I can't. So now and this was Friday. I'm coming here, so I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And that just goes through my head all weekend long. What's wrong with that truck? What's wrong with that truck? What's wrong with that truck?
What do you think is going on? Like,
I don't flipping know.
Okay, no, but you do know.
Here it goes.
Well, I found out what was happening. What's that?
Top blue. Here he goes.
So, no, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is unavoidable. We did our due diligence to make sure that this repair was right.
Yeah.
My guy had done it 1,000 times. He did a good job, good quality job. What happened? And I figured one of the coils crapped out because it's a Ford, right? And that's what they do. And I'm like, well, maybe the coil crapped out or whatever. It's not what it was. By the way, it ended up being an injector connector had rattled loose. And he's like, maybe he left it unplugged. And I was like, no, he didn't. It would have thrown the code immediately. He would have felt it on the 15-mile test drive. The frustrating part is that stuff's unavoidable, and it eats me up. Yes. And that stuff, I cannot procedure my way out of that.
You can't.
You've accepted it. Yeah. You're very woo-saw about it. You're zen about it.
Well, yeah.
Me?
I had an afro a few years ago.
Well, you can't plan and put processes in place for that 1%. This stuff just happens. You just gotta you
I can't live with it.
Well, you got to. You deal with it. You get over it, and you move on.
I can't. You tell me how to get over it. Seriously, tell me.
And if you can't, guess what? The universe keeps doing.
Yeah, get the hell out of shop ownership.
Well, no, it's
half a honey bun, dears.
It's a surrender. That's my favorite word. My wife's a social worker. Literally, the universe and God Almighty Himself is sending you an opportunity for you to forgive yourself for something you have no control over. Yeah. Let it go. Let it. Yeah. And I tell you this as if I'm like an expert at this, right? My son teaches me this. Yeah. Just let it go. It happens. It happens. Right. And the beauty of it is,
you know what the worst part.
But if you can, if that customer, if you don't have that shame, then the customer doesn't believe you're ashamed because there's nothing. And so when you say to the customer, I really, really appreciate you understanding this because I just want you to know we went over the entire thing. We checked this thing out, and it really makes me feel bad that we sent you out and this thing happened. Guess what the customer says at that point in time? It's understandable. I've had that happen to me too.
And this guy was super cool about it. And it wasn't even I'm going to upset the customer because he, at least when he called back, my service advisor handled it perfectly. He said, look, I'm just telling you right now, we test drove it this much. We did this. We did our due diligence. I'm really sorry. Bring it back on Monday. We'll check it out. He did a great job. But the worst part about it is because like it turns into like this ball inside of my chest, and I'm like,
I know.
And I almost want to, and I got a bitch. So what's the first thing I do? When something like this comes up, I'll message my service advisor on a weekend while he's trying to with his family. Mother effing F-250 is coming back. Burp, 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 burp. And once I get it out, I'm like,
see, and that's tough.
But
right?
I dump it on him, and that's unfair. I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, and
I'm going to send
really
you the
bad.
messages.
I'm really
Send me the messages. Send me the messages. Seriously.
And that was in that class yesterday. There's a part where saying you're available 24/7 to your client. That's I get that it's important, but man, it's tough. And I've learned that having that tough conversation, and the reason I think it's important to be available for your client 24/7 is because now, what? Your cell phone number is on there.
I've got a cell phone number, but it's like a Google voice
let's
number.
Put that up where everybody can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Call Tom.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that it's so important to be able to have that conversation before they have the chance to get super upset. Have that conversation when look, I'm upset, my car's broken, what can I do to help, right? And I'm going to tell you, having conversations I don't want to have was something I always avoided. That was like my weak spot.
Yeah, I still do.
And the more that I do it, the more that I have those conversations, the better I do at them. The less anxiety I have about having those conversations. And to get better at it, you have to force yourself through it.
So I just hold on. I need to ask. I don't know what you're staring at. Somebody died. So you remember talking to Seth, and he's talking about the FRM, and he's like, "Yeah, they blow up just because they blow up. Like,
right?
Nothing you can do about them. They're junk. He didn't say that. That's my spin on it. They're junk, and they break, and they come in for an oil change. You didn't do anything else to the car.
Yeah, I just spent $2,500 over that.
They come in for an oil change. Well, yeah. Well, there was probably an issue with the zapping on yours, but I'm saying these, and we've had one blow up at our shop, and he's like, and his approach was very pragmatic. But he almost leans into the confrontation, where I'm like,
let me just pay for it.
Yeah, I'll eat it. I didn't eat the last FRM I blew up, but my tech was killing. Like, he was so upset, and he's like, I know I'm supposed to wait X amount of time to let that thing power down before I disconnect the battery. It's like, I just sat through a training class about it. He was super upset. We ended up, like, the car had an extended warranty. We ended up kind of get it worked out with the dealership or whatever, because I didn't have the equipment to flash it. And so we shipped it up the street, and they took care of it. But he almost leans into that difficult conveation. You kind of seem like you would do that.
Absolutely. So
how do you learn that? A little bit of Seth.
Yeah.
It looks like he doesn't give two shits. You know what I'm saying? He's like, whatever.
Hey, you ever heard of the Mason-Dixon line? That's got a lot to do with it. See, we're below it, they're above it kind of deal. We're nice, they're mean. I mean, that's just
I
how
think
it
I'm
is.
above it, aren't I?
So when I say maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Kansas.
When you say confrontation, I'm talking about identifying what I'm going through as this is happening. So if I'm ashamed that this vehicle came back.
He's not ashamed.
Well, so then I didn't understand. So this is how I would personalize it. If I feel shame, if I feel ashamed at this customer after they just spent $2,500, now they're coming back on the back of a tow truck with this thing having an injector that's whatever, right? What I say to that customer at that point in time is, I just want you to know how much I apologize for the inconvenience that you've had to go through.
Yeah.
Part of this, even though we went through all of the checks and what have you, I just want you to know that part of me feels ashamed because I feel like we've we've failed you in this. Most of the time, the customer is going to say, no, it's not that at all. I really appreciate you guys sending somebody right over, whatever, and all this other stuff, and giving me the loaner car for the day, whatever. I said, but I just want you to know, I'm not done with that yet. I want you to know that I thank you. I feel blessed that this situation happened between us. The fact that you're here for the first time, I just want you to know that some of our best customers are people that we have failed, sometimes advertently, sometimes inadvertently. In this situation here, it was out of our control, but I just want you to know, people like you, thank God you called me. Thank God you had enough trust to call me and say,
let me fix this.
Because sometimes people just don't go, they go away. They just say, I'm never going back to that people again. So the fact that you called me says that
and we need to do probably a better job of articulating that to the customers. Like, if there's any issue, you call me because I want to fix it. Don't you go off to left field.
Well, not because I want you to, but I need you to, because it's people like you that have helped us to get to it's people like you that have turned us into a 5-star shop.
Well, I mean, so much of what we do is really a presentation, right? And I mean that in a very organic way, right? From the time they walk in the shop to the time they leave the shop, it's my job to make sure that they understand. It's my job to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident in what we're saying. All the way up to the second that they are getting ready to walk out the door, I'm talking to them about what their warranty is, how to use their warranty. If you have a problem, don't hesitate. My warranties, no hassle, no questions asked. You got a problem? Call me. We're going to take care of it. I don't care where you're at. I'll even call the warranty company for you. It's not that big of a deal. Let me take care of this. Right, Mr. Client, I'm here for you. That's my job. And if you don't have that conversation, if you don't put that in their mind, it breaks and they take it to the shop down the road. And I just happened, I was on Facebook earlier, and I saw a client that used to be our client, and she's unhappy with our current price structure. And I understand, not a big deal. We're not for everybody. And I happened to notice, I dropped my car off on this day, and now it's this day, and I've not heard anything. And they called, and they had said they were ordering the parts and that this was the estimate to do it, but I've not heard anything back. Right? Well, when you come to me, that's part of the service you're getting. Right? It's not the cheapest service. It's not always the fastest service, but you're getting something different with me. I have to show them that while they're there. That's my responsibility.
And it comes down to communication. So, basically everything I'm hearing you say, Bill, is, you're communicating everything and every point and all your feelings to your customer. Whereas, David is, he got that call about that F-250, and, he's just sitting there getting all worked up and fumed over it and everything, and just, whereas, just communicate that right out, whether it's before they pick up that car, let me know, keep me posted, I want to know, make sure everything's right. And that's the most important thing. We gotta keep communicating, and most all of our problems can be fixed with communication. Just getting it out there.
And by the way, I still feel exactly the way you feel. I feel the shame, right? I feel the disappointment, but immediately thereafter, what flips it for me, what flips the script in my head, is gratitude. Thank God, it's only 15 minutes later. Thank God he wasn't headed to Florida. Right? Yeah. Thank God he's not 2 states.
That freaks me out.
But again,
when they're like, "Hey, I'm about to go to Texas tomorrow, and you need to do $6,000 worth of work on this vehicle," and I'm like,
the guy comes back and says, "My car feels funny. We didn't torque down one of the wheels." Right? Now, that's a conversation that has to take place with people. That says this is really, really, really important. Got people's lives on the line, right?
Yeah. But corrosion on the wheels.
Immediately thereafter is thank God that it came right back. It could have been a lot worse. So can we learn from that? Because then people don't feel like they're being talked at. Now all of a sudden this is a blessing. It really and what are those things? They're always blessings in disguise, because it could always be worse. The only way it could be worse is if the entire building burned down because somebody didn't. I'm
not that upset if it burns down to the ground. It's whatever.
Just saying. even then, that's not the worst case scenario. So there you go. I mean,
as long as nobody died.
Yeah.
I don't want to be responsible for any deaths.
Yeah. So,
except for,
I can be in the building. I'd be okay with it. I'm well insured.
But there's a death in a different kind, and that is that if we aren't able to put on our heads straight, and I say this to my, if we don't have our heads screwed on right, then guys think that the best it'll ever get is that I just don't get yelled at by my boss, right? That's the best it's going to get, because I'm never going to hear him say or her say, thank God, because this could have been a lot worse. We have something that we learned today. I'm eternally grateful for the team that we are and the fact that we grew. I feel like we're going to grow through this. I feel like we've all learned something from this.
I don't always and it's probably I'm terrible at verbalizing that kind of thing with my team, but I will commend them because they do a very good job of at least identifying, like, hey, we can't do it like this anymore. Like, it's got to be like this. It's like, okay. And a lot of times they don't even, I don't have to say it. They know. They see the car come back in or whatever. They see the problem and they're like, hey, we got to do it like this now. Yeah, we do. They do a good job. Like, I've got good people. Like, the people aren't the problem. It's the flipping cars.
Sometimes it's not a speech. It's not a homily they need. Sometimes it's literally just walking across somebody that's struggling, right? And then they get themselves out of it. They find some help, whatever, and you just walk by, tap them on the back of the shoulder, and say, "Perseverance," and then just walk away.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm gonna walk up to them and say just random words.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Hulu.
Well,
ostensibly.
Brandon.
It was.
That'll be good.
During that,
I've got 2 Brandons in my shop. We've got little Brandon and big Brandon.
So who do you tell the let's go? Like if they've got to get done
they
with
get
lunch?
excited.
Do you tell them both,
like,
let's go, Brandon?
Yeah, we scream it all the time in the shop, and he's like, yeah, everybody's into me now. He
Taking a
does.
turn.
We have customers coming in, and they're like, yeah, let's go, Brandon. And he's like, woo! And he's
so, it's an interesting concept because the other day I think it was in the wrench work or the Find a Wrench panel that I was on, somebody said, I can't ever remember the owner saying thank you. I can't remember anybody there ever coming up and saying good job. I can't remember anybody.
That's a problem for me, though, because they get a thank you every Friday in their checking account.
BS. Come on. You know that. If Dutch was here, he'd tear you to shreds right now.
Not only they get a thank you.
Dutch doesn't ever say thank you to anybody.
They get a extra match in their thank you dumped into their 401k. So they get lots of little thank yous. And then, they get some crypto advice. I got one of my techs. He's buying crypto on the regular.
The problem, though, is if you've done it once, that's an expected thing now because it becomes habitual. But where's the unexpected
I
stuff?
remind them every week that at some point, we may not have paychecks this week. Get this car done.
You're running a hostage crisis.
It is very much hostage. He's like, yeah, I'm going to delete that one.
Not that guy.
It's very much a hostage thing.
Yeah.
What's that?
I wonder if he knows he's on a live stream.
Who?
You can the photographer. You can actually see him in the live stream.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's taking a picture of himself, taking a picture
of himself.
That's awesome.
Right. That's fantastic. Well, guys, this has been good.
Have we solved all the world's problems?
Did we solve at least that shop owner's problem? Systems, processes, and procedures don't assume anything when you hire somebody. That was what Mario Rojas said.
I think for me, forgiveness is the big one, right?
Grace, yeah.
Grace and forgiveness.
Well, what happened to, you didn't bring that up with Seth? So I'd fire them.
No, I mean, I think...
Not the tech that screwed up if you were late. My guys are late every day. Every day. Yeah, every day.
I set standards and I set rules and I'll push, but I mean,
set the standard there, David.
What's that? I don't care.
Set the standard, set the example, dude.
I've had techs come in 45 plus minutes late.
If he was setting the example, they'd be at the bank all day.
Yeah, I don't want to set. That's the problem. I get there on time. I do. I'll be a minute or two late. Depends on traffic sometimes. But they rush in. They, except for one, immediately start working. And, they get there and they're like, let's go. Let's do this. It's not mosey in and I'm going to relax for 20, 30 minutes. I don't give them grief about it. And they'll stay late to get that car done. They'll work through lunch if I ask them to. They don't give me grief on... They understand.
Yeah.
On the back end, I don't give them grief. It's almost a, tit for tat, that kind of thing.
Go back to outcome, right? Give me the 40, 45 hours of labor and do it however way you want to do it.
Yeah.
But everybody's different.
Yeah.
But, like Seth, he's a little bit more rigid in his schedule. And you start looking at, I don't know how you run your shop, though, but you look at some of these operations and they're like, it's by the minute. I'm measuring by the minute. I need to know. And Cecil said it yesterday. He was talking about if you see some of these operations, to start looking at how much it costs by the minute. And some of these operations are like that. So you have to have the right personality in that shop. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if you don't hire somebody that understands that and can adapt to that and thrive in that environment, I got at least one tech that would lose it. Where I've got other techs that, they've worked in that environment. They understand. They're like, you guys wait. And he'll tell me, he's like, you guys waste a lot of time here. Like, this would not fly at my last shop. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, it's got to start at 7, and by 7:30 we have to have X amount of cars done. And it's like the pace is 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. The problem is, it seems like it's so unforgiving, though. Let's say you don't have enough cars. You got a tech that likes to work by the minute. Does he stay?
Yeah, you'd lose it
in that situation.
Yeah, it depends on the pay structure.
And again, it's the relationship between the front of the house and the rear of the house.
Sure.
Is that one day somebody's overachieving at the back, somebody's overachieving in the front, and it's that all important grace. It's that we have grace. Yeah. That we're not too forgiving for mediocre.
Yeah, we don't forgive mediocrity.
But as far as
well, here's the thing: is I'm going to piss David's slap off. If I could just turn his headphones off and he couldn't hear me, I would do that. But maybe I'll just turn his mic off. So I've got a series of motivational videos or whatever I listen to. Right, I've got a couple of them I listen to because there's points that I know I personally struggle with, and I'll listen to them to square myself back up, and it works, right? I can see a difference in my decision making when I watch these. And that Andy Andrews video that I always talk about, he talks about forgiveness. And he said that, the Abraham Lincoln quote that he makes in that video, where he talks about that forgiveness is for the person giving the forgiveness, right? And so I think that when we can accept things and we can forgive those who have made a mistake or done whatever they've done, it's really for us, it's not for them. And so now we can stop thinking about what they did and we can start thinking about what the solution is.
Yeah.
Right? It clears our mind. It clears our thought process. Now we're moving. We're going in a direction as opposed to we're stuck on the facts. Somebody did this. I can't believe this. This car is this. This person is this. Right now we're talking about solutions.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're in action mode, not reaction mode.
Yeah.
Because if you keep thinking about it, you keep beating yourself up, you're constantly reacting to that.
He's got to go. Let's cut this off.
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
Don't end it on Andy Andrews, though. Click.
Okay, fine. Here. End it on that. E+R Zo.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the ASOG podcast. If you'd like to catch these episodes early, you can do so by becoming a patron. Just go to asog.site and click on the Become a Patron Now button. Becoming a patron helps support the show, gets you several perks, and is tax deductible. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and on YouTube so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, shoot me an email. My email address is david@asog.site. That's david@asog.site. Until next time.